The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order! The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Rowan Ryan Rodriguez presiding. We all rise for the Honorable Judge Rodriguez.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus the Great Gatsby, a 2013 period drama about an institutionalized writer who reminisces about his acquaintanceship with a millionaire named Jay Gatsby during the 1920s, adapted from the F. Scott Fitzgerald novel. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always, in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, you're appearing on behalf of the prosecution. You may begin your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the court, The Great Gatsby, as it is abused by director Baz Luhrmann, is a long, empty-headed meditation on the classic work by F. Scott Fitzgerald. All the glitz and all the glamour, but no substance to leave us enamored. A pile of special effect dreck that seeks to punish the senses and ultimately leaves the audience in a dizzying stupor, asking, what was that all about? The answer is nothing. In this case, I will show how a lack of fealty to the novel, poor casting, which is then amplified by the bizarre directorial decisions, leave this as an ersatz story. There will only be one way to vote, old sport. Guilty.
Thank you, Mr. Schlender. And appearing on behalf of the defense is Ms. Sasha Kerbel. Please present your opening statement.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, under the law, my client, Baz Luhrmann's film, released in 2013, The Great Gatsby, is presumed innocent or an incredible movie and the work of art until proven otherwise. The most common argument I hear is that the classical film adaptation of The Great Gatsby with Robert Redford and Mia Farrow is the only right film version, and that Luhrmann's Gatsby is nothing close to it and hollow. During this trial, you will come to know the truth, which, in the words of the great F. Scott Fitzgerald, is this: you can't repeat the past. I will prove today that you can't repeat the past, but you can take it to the next level and create a beautiful piece of cinematic art.
Thank you, Ms. Kerbel. Mr. Schlender, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
Thank you. So, why is The Great Gatsby considered so great? And of course, we have to start at the beginning. I mean the novel, not the titular character for this point that I'll be bringing up. The book is a semi-autobiographical story by Fitzgerald and is told through the perspective of Nick Carraway, detailing his fantastic summer escapade in Long Island in the 1920s. It is a jaunty 218 pages of stellar prose and a story dripping with meaning that should have resonated greatly in 1925, but hugely resonates today. However, this story is completely lost on the screen, if it were ever even close. Fitzgerald wrote at once a mea culpa and indictment of the freewheeling Nueva rich, an inherent conflict between classes and their money. The self-building that is so inherent to the American experience is challenged by Fitzgerald in a way that is just not seen on the screen. Nick Carraway's military service is glossed over. Daisy is portrayed far too sympathetically, and Gatsby is held up as an icon to marvel and emulate, as opposed to the object of, quote, unmitigated scorn, end quote, as he's described in the novel. So this leaves us with a neutered movie that is focusing on a romance, and it is romanticizing that romance which is weird because Leo's Gatsby has a clipbook of Daisy, and it's very creepy, but it's presented as charming. Daisy is shown to have some real conflict over her feelings for her husband and her fling with Gatsby. Such conflict not present in the book at all. So Daisy, who's supposed to be a very shallow, unsympathetic character, is now trying to draw sympathy. And that's where this movie also has a problem in how it's trying to humanize these characters with this provocation of sympathy. But what truly made these characters human in the novel was their weaknesses, their cravenness, and their spite. They are supposed to be flawed and largely unsympathetic. Our narrator, Carraway, has no sympathy for them in the novel. So they're not the hopeless romantics who are caught in the wrong place at the wrong time like we see in the film. Moving on to exactly the abuses that we see of the character Gatsby, for example, these cannot be understated. While he is as craven and weak as mentioned before, these points are never driven home in the movie. Again, we are left sighing and pining for Leonardo DiCaprio and not for Gatsby. And this is greatly exemplified by what the movie chooses to leave out. And that is at the end of the movie, we all know, there's a spoiler warning, Gatsby is dead. Oh, settle down. Gatsby is dead, and we see a distraught Tobey Maguire. Yeah. Order, please.
Objection! No spoilers!
Sustained.
Oh, very well, then. So, Gatsby, who may or may not be dead at this funeral that happens at the end of the movie.
Ooh,
yeah,
mystery.
You have to watch the film to find out. We are treated only to a distraught Tobey Maguire. The character that is missing, that really helps drive home the entire point in the novel, is Gatsby's father, Mr. Getz. In the novel, Mr. Getz shows up, and he is initially completely enamored and in awe of everything his son was able to build, because he had never visited him before, and he was just like, wow, I can't believe he did all this. And then as the days go on, he begins to open up a bit more to Carraway, and he shows him this very interesting relic from Gatsby's past, which is
a sled?
No, it might as well be. It's a book that in the back, Gatsby, had written habits that he wanted to maintain about reading books, saving money, being a good person, all these things that were completely lost when he transformed himself into Gatsby. And that is something that the book tries to drive home, are these perils of self-creation, reinventing yourself, losing touch with your roots, completely missed in the movie.
So most of that argument, I assume, was to let everybody know in the courtroom that you have read the book.
I listened to a book on tape. Yes, Your Honor.
I would like to
Jake
hear
Gyllenhaal one.
I would like to hear the defense's rebuttal to exactly how faithful this movie is to the book, or whether or not that actually matters.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Your Honor. Okay, so let's start with this. I am personally a big fan of Fitzgerald's writing. And so, I know his books, and I read, of course, The Great Gatsby. And so as all people who love his books, let's say, give myself a right to judge the film adaptation a little bit. But aside of the personal judgment, I have to say objectively that, yes, the film does not fully repeat the book, let's say, translates the book onto the screen, but it is not necessary. The main, and yes, it's true, there is the line about his father is completely cut out of the film. So it's not, although I have a feeling that there was a time when I saw the version with actually a father, maybe it was a director's cut, I don't know what it was, and I cannot remember. While preparing my argument, I couldn't figure it out. So, and I didn't have time for it, sorry. So But I figured that it doesn't matter that much. Gatsby, I disagree with the prosecutor. Um, I think that the figure of Gatsby is way more clear and tragic in the film. And yes, Baz Luhrmann is obviously a positive person who wants to present the story through his positive, a little bit of a positive lens, let's say. So he does make almost all the characters probably better that they are in the book. It's true, but if they were exactly like in the book, uh, it would be, some things would be lost on screen. And all, like, I don't know, maybe my argument will, like, I will start with one and will then flow from topic to topic. But first of all, I wanted to say that Fitzgerald was a synesthete, and I'm a synesthete too. He saw smells, or he like smelled colors, or and all these components of this gift synesthesia. Like, for instance, there are lines in his book like, it smelled like something yellow. And I bet that Baz Luhrmann is also a synesthete. So music, sounds, smells, the translation of colors, all of that matters. And he perfectly translated it onto screen. As for the story, yes, it's a story of longing and loss, about dreams and disillusion. And Gatsby's motivation, that time, that gap between old money and new money, between the Gatsby who is trying to build that bridge between these two worlds, I think it's perfectly translated onto the screen. And the fact that they added, it wasn't in the book, that Nick Carraway's is like in this sanitarium writing the story, this beginning of the story, I think it makes it way more powerful. I personally felt it very well. Um, and the whole world of the jazz era, this careless celebratory time, very unique and very fascinated in the world history and in American history for sure. Um, he creates on screen this foreboding of impending tragedy for Gatsby himself, for chasing the dream, for his obsession uh, with the girl. The story that the girl that distracted him from his goals and purposes and made him chase her forever. All of that, this tragedy for Gatsby and for the country, become more clear. And it's a combination. Baz Luhrmann, first of all, when we go to watch his version, his take on the great American novel, we know what to expect. We know Luhrmann. He's a visual artist. He's all about color and celebration of music and, excess of all of this. So we know what to expect, right? And he creates by the visuals and the characters and the music combine, and this green light is more poignant than even in a book here. I think he creates this anticipation of impending tragedy and of this gap between two worlds and the desperation of Gatsby that absolutely makes the story in the book more 3D. I can go on and on,
Well,
but I think that
I-
prosecutor
She
has
showed
a say.
you. She
I
really put
think-
you in your place.
Prosecution, would you care to rebut that?
No, absolutely. So with Baz Luhrmann, his style, it's really just that. It's all style and no substance. For example, talking about the green light being very pervasive in the movie, you could tell that's what Luhrmann liked. That just it was this big green light. He wasn't able to articulate or demonstrate the importance that it had, like we had in the novel. This idea that it represented the past and the future, something that I was always reaching for, that he couldn't quite get. And as the defense said, towards the end of the movie, we see the tragedy. But what the whole point of the novel is, the whole story is already the tragedy. We're already there from day one. The fact that Gatsby had to mutilate himself, figuratively, of course, to become Gatsby, to try to appeal to Daisy, that's already the tragedy. The tragedy isn't that him and Daisy didn't end up together, as Luhrmann tries to make present in the movie. So at the end of the movie, where Gatsby may or may not get shot before this funeral scene that happens, I know, right? The phone rings and he thinks Daisy's calling to say that she's going to be with him. But in the novel, that isn't what happens at all. Gatsby is floating in the pool, and we never actually get to see or hear what happens to him because, again, the whole novel is told through the perspective of Carraway. And he imagines that Gatsby is floating there, and he says the phone call never came. It didn't ring. It was far too late. And he had to look up at a sky. He had to look and see the new world he was going to be living in, knowing that that future with Daisy was never going to come to pass, which is a much more interesting way to end Gatsby's story, because then he has to decide, because then Carraway can look at his entire life and think, was what Gatsby did worth it? And then as the novel goes on, as we get to the funeral scene and he's trying his hardest to get people to actually show up for the funeral, he says, Gatsby, I'll get you someone. I'll get you someone. Saying it not out of really admiration or love for Gatsby, but out of hatred for the world that he's found himself in. And you don't get that hatred. You don't get that contempt because Tobey Maguire can't deliver it or wasn't directed to deliver it. Instead, they tried to turn it into this very strange bromance between Leo and Toby. And this could have hurt because they are actually friends in real life. So they do have kind of a natural chemistry, but that chemistry wasn't there in the novel. And I think it's important to explain why the novel is so important because, as you said, it's the great American novel. This is pretty sacrosanct here. If you're going to tell this story, you have to tell this story. You can't turn it into a love story and then just call it The Great Gatsby. This isn't like when we talked about, how Die Hard was based on a book. Obviously, you can change all that. That's Pulp Fiction. You can do whatever you want with it. When we're talking about the great American novel, I think you need to have some reverence and understanding for the source material that Boz simply does not have, either through inability or ignorance.
Now, I have one question regarding this, your approach to adapting the great American novel. Is there only one way that classic literature can be adapted? Does it have to be so dogmatic?
I don't think we are looking at a case where if you're adapting a novel, that there are certain things that are axiomatic. But one thing that I think is important is that you get the message and the feeling across. For as a very crude example, if you were to adapt Anne Frank's diary and it made the Nazis look sympathetic, that's a complete failure. And one of the problems with this is, and this could have a lot to do with maybe the fact that Jay-Z, the famous hip hopper, I think is the term. The hip hopperist was a producer, is that the lifestyle that Gatsby was leading is completely glamorized. As a matter of fact, when the movie was being launched, celebrities were throwing huge Gatsby-esque parties, whereas the whole book was supposed to be an indictment of it, but the movie comes across as a celebration of that because Baz Luhrmann likes doing really big lights and really big parties. That's the part that he likes. He doesn't like the part where Fitzgerald is saying, but this is soulless. This is not right. This is wrong. This is something that will change you for the worst. If this is what you want to become, or if this is what you're born into, like Buchanan and Daisy, then you're worthless from the jump. And that is completely lost. You have no way of getting that from the movie. So the movie became a celebration of what Fitzgerald was condemning.
Defense, I would like to hear. This is a sticking point amongst people who watch this film, and I'd like to hear your stance on whether or not Baz Luhrmann is glamorizing this particular lifestyle.
Yes, thank you for the question. I believe that Luhrmann uh, it's opposite of that. Actually, Luhrmann, with all these, yes, he glamorized it, but he made it very, very contemporary, so our generation could totally get it, totally understand what was happening. Made it very, very modern, but with Jay-Z, I mean, Luhrmann and Jay-Z, but he is showing this, yeah, this emptiness and this disgust um to those worlds, through the visuals and through those parties and through this all, like, meaningless and opulent lifestyles. And for example, there is one scene when also, like, showing something deeper through visual, like, for instance, this, Gatsby is chasing, it's like a price of chasing this dream. And Gatsby, while trying to become one of those that are like from Daisy's world, let's say, the scene where he arranges this tea for Daisy, the first meeting of Gatsby and Daisy at Nick Carraway's, and he brings all those flowers and cakes, and it's too much, and it's absolutely tasteless. And we can see that, he's got money, he's got all that should be on the surface, being a millionaire. But I totally read into that. I totally read that it's not, he lives someone else's life. He kind of reinvented himself and into someone else, and what he lost along the way, I can totally read it. And
See, I would
yeah.
say that we don't get a good perspective of the man Gatsby was, and we're just supposed to feel bad that Leo doesn't get the girl at the end. That is the vibe that the movie's going for, and I think that's really hurt because Carraway is not as detached from Gatsby as he is in the novel as he should be. I don't know if, I can't remember if this line's in the book or in the movie, but when Gatsby says, "Do you think it's too much?" talking about the flowers, Carraway goes, "I think it's what you want." And if that
Yeah.
is it in the movie, okay, good. So, that does a good job of capturing that. But then they never go back to that, and Carraway is just completely in the pocket of Gatsby to the exclusion of his own romantic affair that he has with Jordan Parker, Jordan Baker.
Jordan Baker.
Yeah,
although
which is a very important piece of the story, because Carraway is supposed to be complicit in all of this. When the line where they say, "I was within and without," he's trying to buy himself a little bit of cover. But in the novel, he is much more ingrained in that world and much more disinterested in them as people, just as they are all disinterested in themselves. They only use people to the extent that they can get something from them. So you have Gatsby using Daisy for status. You have Daisy using Gatsby for like a fling. You have Buchanan using everyone, using Myrtle for a mistress, so he can tap into that lower class life that he loves so well. So Carraway should be complicit in all that, and the movie doesn't do a good job of addressing that.
Poor Myrtle.
Yes.
Well, I gotta agree partially with Nick Carraway in the movie. I guess it's, yes, because there was an idea of casting best pals in the same movie, Tobey Maguire. And, although there is this pleasantness to Tobey Maguire that allows him to be this storyteller that kind of works for both sides, sort of like a parliamentarian. But at the same time, it's not, his character on screen is not like strong enough. But to me, it didn't really make that much of a difference. Knowing the book and loving the book, I don't want to see, in my imagination, I created my own images of Gatsby, of the situation, of life, of Daisy, of Buchanan, sorry. And, but so in a movie, I want to see something else. I want to see a different angle. And exactly what we were talking about before, the creating these characters. And I think, you sympathize with Daisy, but not really, not really. Because you can read all of that, like class is a much stronger bond than love in the story and all of that, and how she's not really going to change anything, and Gatsby's obsession, and like all of that. I think you can read perfectly all of that, but the film adds its
I
own.
think you can read that if you've read the book and you have that in your mind. I think watching it fresh, and I'd have to talk to someone who hasn't read the novel previously, it does look like a pretty cut and dry love story. But I would just like to make one final point, because we were talking about what you're seeing in the movie. So we spent a great amount of time talking about the novel. Very happy that we did. That's fantastic.
Yeah, me too.
It's fantastic. And so when we actually look at what's on the screen, what we're actually seeing with our senses, as you said,
Our eyes?
Yes. Our eyes, what we're hearing with our ears. We have a very strange juxtaposition with modern music towards the beginning of the film that basically gets abandoned, which, again, very, very, very strange, a little jarring. You have Baz Luhrmann's weird sweeping zooms and camera work. What Baz Luhrmann is doing with these decisions, he's Gatsby, but he doesn't realize that he's not supposed to be participating in the party. He goes all in. He completely misses the point of what made Gatsby great. And I will rest my case there.
Defense, I'd like to hear your perspective on whether or not Baz Luhrmann is betraying the purpose of the story through his aesthetic.
No, I don't think so. And as we said before, The Great Gatsby is, I don't know, it's probably one of the, if not the most American of stories. And, the admiration for the self-made success story overall encoded at the very center of, American DNA. And, like nobody from nowhere who rises from poverty to immense wealth. And also, it is also so Baz Luhrmann also makes it very American by creating again the character of Gatsby, like Nick Carraway says in the very beginning, that it's I forgot the exact line, but it was something about the most hopeful person I've ever met. And Gatsby in the film never ever loses this hope, and that's why I find the invented moment with the phone call, which was really cool, that everybody thought it would be he's waiting for Daisy. He thinks Daisy called in the moment when, spoiler alert, he's dying or not. But then it turns out that it was Nick Carraway, that she never called. Or she did. We don't know yet.
We don't know.
But, that gives us this feel like he doesn't lose the hope. In the book, he's disillusioned in the end, and in the movie, he never loses this hope, which makes it even more American, because America and Americans are known in the whole world for being the country, a hopeful country with this undying hope. And with that said, I will rest my case.
For the record, though, Baz Luhrmann's Australian, and I think that's why he missed some of the points.
Oh, no. I know. Yeah, I absolutely know. He is an Australian, which is funny. Let me add then before I rest my case. And we know, because, exactly. He's Australian, but he dares to make this American story. And he makes it from the perspective, probably, like I am a lawyer who is from a different country. And he also views Gatsby and this very American story from the perspective of how the world perceive this American dream and, this nation. And so I think he did exactly what he had to do, with this, to make it contemporary, to make it understandable, and to make it, again, very and very American. With that said, I will rest my case.
Both the prosecution and defense have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Prosecution, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. We can't forgive Baz Luhrmann or like his movie, but we can see that what he has done was, to him, entirely justified. It was all very careless and confused. He is a careless person, Baz Luhrmann. He smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into his money or his vast carelessness or whatever it was that keeps him making films, and let us, in this court, clean up the mess he had made. Thank you.
That was a quote from the
Defense?
movie.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Defense, you may present your closing argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. And before I will make my closing statement, I would like to thank you, Your Honor, and you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and I would say gentlemen of the jury in this case.
Thank
And
you.
I would like to
I'll
thank,
take ladies.
yeah,
Jeez.
thank the prosecution for making the case, and it was an honor for me to defend the case of the Great Gatsby, the film of 2013 by Baz Luhrmann and Jay-Z, I would say, and and so you've heard the argument of both sides. My question is, what is the purpose of film? Let's answer this question. A movie is a piece of art. And just like the painting or a sculpture or a song, and that means that its overall purpose is to provoke an emotional reaction from its audience. The Great Gatsby, the fifth film adaptation of the great American novel by the great F. Scott Fitzgerald, is doing just that. And I will add a personal note here. Why I personally, back in 2013, have contributed to Baz Luhrmann's, Jay-Z's, DiCaprio's, and other creators' wealth by watching this film in movie theaters about 20 times in Russian, 10 to 12 times in English, in two cities, Moscow and St. Petersburg, and then purchased DVD, then chose the film every time on the flights from Russia to the United States when it became available. And then now I own it on iTunes and Amazon Prime and still watch it with the same fascination every single time. I think, why did I do all of that? Because it's a great movie. And again, I gotta say that as a fan of Fitzgerald's writing, can never get enough of it, and I can never get enough of film adaptations of his books. It's always wonderful to see how different people from different corners of the world see his stories and what he is trying to say. Thank you so much. And I want to close my statement with the line that has nothing to do with anything that I said above. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. Because it's the most beautiful closing line in the world's literature.
Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Robb Maynard, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, Mr. Rags to Riches Ryan Luis Rodriguez, you have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
I thought this film was about a magician. Alrighty. Okay. So just quick show of hands here in the deliberation room. How many people have read the book in here? I have.
I have back in high school. Don't remember anything about it.
Like most books I read in high school, I read the Spark Notes.
So actually, yeah, I think that's my case too.
Yeah.
Did it impact your feeling about this film at all going in?
No.
Well, in my younger and more formative years, probably. I would say
no. I mean, like when you're watching the film point blank, did your knowledge of the book like impact how you felt about it?
No, but I researched about the book kind of after watching the film. Kind of because I'm usually when a book is adapted into a movie, I'm curious about the source material, which obviously we spent most of our time on, which I think is the right thing to do. I think that is the tipping point of this kind of story. I know Ryan kind of made his feelings clear earlier that maybe it doesn't matter, but
Judge Ryan, not
Judge Ryan.
jury
Yeah,
member
some
Ryan.
other
No,
guy.
right. It
I
was
don't know who that guy
roaring.
is.
It was roaring Ryan Rodriguez who said it, not rags to riches Ryan Rodriguez. But for me, an adaptation, you can change little details. You want to change, scenery, stuff like that. But when you change themes, then I think you're making a larger change. And now that doesn't necessarily make it bad. If you're changing themes, maybe you're making a statement on the story that the author didn't have there. But you're definitely changing the message.
Or making it more applicable to modern times, I think maybe what they were going for.
I wouldn't say in this case.
Yeah, originally, supposedly, he was supposed to update it to present day and decided not to do that, I guess, relatively last minute before shooting. But I don't really know what he would have changed to make it present day because he
obviously already got the
updates it
soundtrack
enough.
done.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's that same anachronistic thing that Moulin Rouge had, except Moulin Rouge wasn't adapting a classic novel. It was an entirely original kind of thing.
Well, what I was thinking about was, while listening to the music, now some of it I don't like. I really don't like when that slow version of Beyonce is so crazy right now.
Oh my gosh, I
love
hate
that
it.
that
part. That's
no,
my
I thought that
favorite
was
part.
horrible. No, I thought that was horrible.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
I thought that was totally that's a terrible version of that song.
And there's great music from the 1910s, 1920s. Why didn't they use that?
No. My point is I didn't like that one moment. I like most of the rest of the time where Jay-Z is playing otherwise, because I think there's a lot of synergy between hip hop culture and this story that F. Scott Fitzgerald penned, where it's people who may have been born in a lower strata have risen to this higher strata, right? I mean, Jay-Z frequently raps about being born and living and growing up in the projects, and now he's in, mansions and airplanes and things that were well beyond his reach at a time. And so I think there's a lot of synergy
That's
there.
not what he wants, though, in the movie. What Gatsby wants, he wants, and in the book, he's pining after the love, not the parties and the lavishness.
I disagree with that. I don't agree with that. I don't want to get too much into the novel, but I don't agree with that. I do think
It was all like a fulcrum for him to impress her.
No. She
to get her.
No, she's a pawn to impress everyone else. Ben, she is the trophy wife that he needs to get to prove he's at that status and at that strata. To prove that he's a rich man, he must have a rich girl. Until he has a rich girl, he's still just a poor boy with
I
money.
do agree with that, but still, the lavishness in the house is like his catapult to get her.
Yes, it's a lure. It's a lure.
Not on its own. Like we're like the hip hop sort of thing is like, having the nice car and the nice whatever.
I'm saying, yes, they could have played, a lot more of the flapper sort of jazz music. I liked the jazz music, like when they were having the apartment party and the guys playing trumpet out on the fire escape. Liked that. But
that was great.
There's some other moments where they're actually just playing like the jazz music and it didn't work for like tension and stuff. I think it's when they're getting off the train and they're in the Valley of Ashes, like they're just playing jazz music and like it was weird. Because it had no bass, it's all treble. Like it was strange. It was weird.
My biggest issue with the old music is that both Gershwin and like a song like Let's Misbehave were better used in Woody Allen movies. And I think that this movie should have stuck to just the contemporary stuff, because I think that presents
one or the other,
unique
maybe
enough
not
energy.
both.
I agree with
that. You can't have
that.
a blend. That's not how it works. But
I totally agree with that. Yeah, stick to one and don't blend. And it's like with an hour left of this movie, they totally abandon it. And it's just gone. And to the point where I was like, what happened to the hip hop? I mean, like, I was kind of down with that. I liked when we were driving over like the Queensboro Bridge and H to the Izzo start playing. I like, that was fun.
That scene looked like Speed Racer, though. That's another thing that sort of bugged me, is the visuals were like so overblown in this thing. It doesn't at all feel like
complimenting this movie by comparing it to Speed Racer.
No, the Wachowski brothers Speed Racer.
Right. I love that.
Right, that's what he means. That's what he means. I like the visuals in this movie, and maybe it's because I was a New York kid. Right, I lived there when I was 18 until my mid-20s, and so seeing old school New York, that's one of the big strengths to me of this movie. It's CGI. I mean, obviously,
Old school New York. Yes, yeah. The CGI, like it looks like an Avengers film almost, with panning, weird, constructed buildings that you can tell are CGI. Is what I'm talking about.
Well,
I
when you
still
shoot
liked it.
Australia as New York, that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's that that great scene where all the city's glittery and they pan back and it looks like it's the Miramax logo for a moment. So like I still liked it. I think there's weaknesses and strengths to this film. The strengths I do largely think are the visuals, that especially the costume design is wonderful. The sets, whether they're close up or when they're even driving over the bridge, I think it's great.
The interior of his house is amazing. The gold kind of like sconces is possibly the best bit of art direction in the entire film.
Absolutely. Hard agree. That looked awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think, obviously I believe it won the Academy Award for costumes and production design. So obviously
both by the same person, his wife, Catherine Martin.
Nice. Good for Catherine. Wow. Shout out Catherine. So that to me, that's a huge strength. And I think Leo's performance is another real standout of this film. It's like Leo understood something about the Gatsby story that even Boz didn't understand himself. Because there's like a layer that he doesn't show much, right? There's the sort of poor Midwestern kid really buried deep down there who's putting on affectations. And I'm sure some people probably think the performance is bad because it seems fake. And it's like, yes, but the performance that you're looking at that seems fake is Jay Gates pretending to be Gatsby, like that's an affectation he's putting on. Like every time he calls someone old sport, it's so unnatural because it's so unnatural for him to say, because he's so a phony.
That bugged me in the moment because it felt like he was missing from a roll call for the movie Caddyshack.
But the point is, it's supposed to seem out of place. It's supposed to seem unnatural because if you would ask Fitzgerald, it is unnatural for that person to talk like that. If he's pretending to be something that he's not, and at least in Fitzgerald's opinion, never can be. He can always just be a poor person with money. He can never be high class society.
That's an interesting point.
Well, I mean,
that
but
actually
that's
shifts the way that I interpreted a lot of the movie.
I think maybe I'll ask Ryan too, but do we agree that this is definitely a bad adaptation of the book? Maybe not necessarily a bad movie, but a bad adaptation?
I think it's a faithless adaptation.
I think bad is a pejorative, and I look at adaptations, especially like now, I'm not precious about being faithful to anything.
Right.
And I think that as long as you, like the defense pointed out, it's art form cinematically is a different thing, and literature cannot be replicated on film. It's just, you can get close, but you can't make the book. The book has been made, and I don't know why you would want to make the book again. If you want to read the book, go read it.
I agree with that.
Because you got a book report in the morning, and the book's 2 hours, or the movie's 2 hours, and the book takes longer than that.
But as far as like, okay, I don't want to touch too much more on book interpretations, but like if you were to readapt Jurassic Park to be like pro genetic engineering, you miss the point of Jurassic Park, right? So, like when you readapt Gatsby and do it sort of pro social mobility, I think you're missing Fitzgerald's point. And Fitzgerald's point might be shit, right? He's a classist. And there's some other problems with the book too.
Anti-Semite stuff like that.
Well, I don't know if he's an anti-Semite. He could be. I know that Buchanan is more anti-Semitic in the book. They touch on it in the movie a bit just to kind of make him look like an asshole, which is, I think, what the book is too. He's just supposed to look stupid.
And they changed the ethnicity of the one Jewish character in the book.
Who is that?
What's his name?
Walsham.
Yes, thank you.
Mayor Walsham.
They cast a Bollywood actor instead of a Jewish gentleman.
That's a whole different kind of racist, isn't it? Anyway, I'll go on record first though. I've liked this movie for a few years anyway, because I love Leo. I really, really like Leo.
Who doesn't?
Right, but I think he's just such a great actor. I think the visuals of this, the sets are beautiful, and I think the costumes are beautiful, and everything that really makes it a period piece to me is successful, even the contemporary music, because of the synergy I mentioned. However, I don't think it's a good movie because of how faithless an adaptation it is. I can't say it's good. I would put it more, it's more middling to me because I think it misses the point of the novel, but the strengths can't be denied, and I think that's enough to save it. So I'm going to say not guilty.
Mr. Rodriguez?
So I didn't feel anything watching it, but I didn't really expect to. But I love the visuals simply because it feels like Baz Luhrmann is trying to remind the audience that despite period pieces usually being in black and white or in monochrome, that reality is always in color. So at the very beginning, after the studio logos, which start in black and white and then become color, the archived black and white footage of New York at the time is also colorized. And I think that that's kind of that I like that subversion. And even though I was not terribly interested in the story or the characters, that visual hook kept me going the entire time. And also Elizabeth Debicki, yes, please.
Of course. That's the reason I didn't bring her up.
I don't have enough stake in this game to sink it with a guilty, so I'm gonna go not guilty.
All right. I tend to agree with you folks. I do think it's a bad adaptation. That doesn't make it a bad movie. I think production-wise, it pretty much shines. And Leo, of course, is great in anything he does.
Leo!
So,
Right.
Bad adaptation, not a bad movie. That is my vote as well.
All right, well, let's get out there and tell that very handsome judge.
Wow.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have indeed, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus The Great Gatsby, we find the accused not guilty of being a bad movie.
Oh, no, I'm ruined.
The verdict is so rendered. I hereby order director Baz Luhrmann to start pre-production on a garishly colored adaptation of The Beautiful and the Damned. Court is adjourned.
This is Gay Gatsby, old sport, reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice. Mr. Schlender, would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict?
Now, let me bum a cigarette there from you.
There you go, old sport. I'll light it for you.
All right. Well, I do believe in the Reels of Justice, and we did good work here today. And just like Josie's and the Pussycats, I'll have to take the moral victory of getting the recognition that it's a bad adaptation, just like Josie's and the Pussycat is bad satire. Ryan, goodbye.
Josie's and the Pussycat is the sequel to Josie and the Pussycats.
I said goodbye. Get out of here.
All right, break it up, you two, all right? And here's Miss Kerbel. Miss Kerbel, please, could we get a word from you on how you feel about today's verdict?
Thank you. I'm very happy. It wasn't an easy case. The prosecutor is brilliant, and I was honored to be in the same courtroom with him and argue the case. I believe in The Great Gatsby, and yes, I agree. I overheard because I have spies everywhere. I overheard what the jurors were discussing, and I really agreed to a lot of that and really loved it. Overall, I'm really happy, and of course, in 5 minutes, I will think about that. Oh my God, I didn't say that, and this argument of mine was really weak because I prepared another argument, and then I kind of forgot about that. But I hope you will excuse me for that because it's my first ever case that I defended, which launched my career, I guess, today as a successful defense lawyer. I don't take impeachment cases, though, so don't.
We congratulate you on your first successful cinematic lawyering case. Unfortunately, it does not pay much.
And the credits don't transfer.
Exactly. We appreciate that.
Maybe I will be paid by principal part in the next Baz Luhrmann's movie. I wouldn't mind that.
Very possible. I know he's doing the Grapes of Wrath. Thank you very much, and that's all the time we have from the courthouse today. Let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis, old sport.
Oh, that was a tremendous case.
It was a great case.
And I do take my hat off to you. That was
You're
such
not
a
wearing
great
a hat.
defense. Well, not anymore. I just took it off.
Oh, you're right.
I never should have had it on in the court anyway. That's pretty rude.
Very rude.
I know.
That's probably why you lost.
Almost certainly.
How many loose losses is this for you now?
Counting this one?
Yeah.
11.
All of them.
How many moral victories?
Too many moral victories,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
that's right.
But that was a great case, Sasha. You did a great job. You know so much about this movie. Did you really see it in theaters 20 times?
Yeah, I did, and I saw it in Russian and in English, because in Russia we have some movie theaters that show movies in original languages. So because usually in Russia it's like it's dubbed. We don't like to watch the movie and read the subtitles, so we don't do that. So we usually it's fully dubbed. So I wanted to know what is it in the original, and so I kind of like. Yeah, I watched that many times, and then every time on the plane, and then I own it and rewatch from time to time. And
It's too bad you didn't buy the ViewMaster version. The 3D visuals really pop.
Speaking of 3D, did you see it in 3D in the theater?
I'm just kidding.
I did actually. I did see it several times. I did see it in 3D, and I wanted to give a shout out to a wife of Baz Luhrmann, Catherine, who is an amazing artist and designer. And I would like to also reveal a couple of facts about the movie, because back then I also had a career on radio, and I got an envelope with a giant, very thick, like a book press release where there were a lot of facts about the film. And I remember from that press release that, first of all, for the party scenes, Baz Luhrmann, he gave to each background actor who he gave a name, an occupation, and like a couple of words about their character. So all these crowd, actually the background actors, they had an opportunity to create the backstories for their characters, and that made it visually absolutely fantastic. You know, everybody had their own attitude, their own character, their own story. The other thing is that Catherine used like, for instance, jewelry was authentic, the diamonds were authentic, and she wanted the actors to feel this kind of old world money, and to feel like to really immerse themselves into that world. And so I wanted to also say that, so the audience would know.
Nice.
So, Sasha, from you coming from, are you from Russia originally? Is what it is?
Yes.
With love.
Okay, so so when you saw this movie, did you or even read the novel? Did you see that as more of like from the outside looking into the American dream? Like, wow, look at that! Like is that something that resonated with you? That piece of it, like we could all become like Gatsby, like we can all like come to America and make our own identity.
No, no, I didn't see it that way. What I related to in a way, in a weird way, in my own ways, let's just say, I related to Gatsby very much. And partially, of course, I was not related, but partially I related to Daisy, but again, in my own way. And let me elaborate on that. So, as for Gatsby, most of all, I am a person of hope. I am an optimist, and I never give up. And I like, my hope never dies. So, and the loneliness of this hopeful person who chased this dream, you know, that side of Gatsby, that what kind of resonated with me really a lot. And in the movie, let's say, and when I read the book, it was mostly about, you know, it's kind of like a probably a weak comparison, but it is a comparison. In Soviet Union, you know, we didn't have like classes like aristocrats and whatever, because although we had, but it was all officially eliminated in with the Russian Revolution in 1917. But in Soviet society, they were like other social classes, let's just say. And my family belonged to, my father was a celebrated artist who came from the terrible poverty, but lucky for him, that revolution that happened allowed people like him to get an education, and he was very talented, and everybody saw that as an artist. But if not for that, he would never be able to go to the big city and to learn and to become the one of the most celebrated artists in Soviet Union, which he did. And so we always lived by Soviet standard very well, and we were always like objects. By we I mean me and my sisters. We were kind of like a good party, let's just say, for a guy. And I kind of felt in this way. I felt in this way. Um, I understood kind of the world of Daisy, because there was a time in the 90s, and this society where even in Soviet Union, with all the titles and like this lost, but we still had, there were manners. We were dressing up for dinner, had certain way we talk, and didn't use obscene language or something, and had certain codes, that you share with the. So when you talk to a person or you see something, you recognize that, oh, we're the same kind of social class. And I'm not judging it. Is it a good thing or a bad thing or anything? I'm not judging it here. I'm just kind of explaining where I'm coming from. And so
it was there.
In the 90s, we had that moment when the Soviet Union was destroyed, ended. And then money poured into our country, a lot of investments, people saw opportunities. And then a lot of people who were at that time, like more or less young adults, they gripped on that opportunity to steal from the country resources as well. That's how our new wealth of new so-called new Russians was built, by like stealing or like robbing, or like they would uh, go with the weapon to some factory and say, it's my factory from now on. And it was such a mess in our country that it was very easy to do. And so a lot of people who are in their 50s right now and they're wealthy, their wealth was assembled and built back then on shady stuff. So it kind of reminded me of that era. But people got a lot of money, and they were way more wealthy than any of us, of this like society that was sort of like all had old world manners and class, and that uh they the way they talked, the way they dressed, the way they didn't have a clue. They had money, but they could not buy certain things with that. They could not buy these classy kind of ways, or I wouldn't say upbringing, because that will seem arrogant, but you understand what I mean, like
Yeah,
the
manners,
way,
kind of. You can't buy manners.
yes, the manners, the behavior. It was all like you could tell. So that's why I found this scene, like a lot of scenes, but one of the examples, that scene with the flowers, it's just one of those, and it's very, again, maybe not the best example, but just pops up in my head, that he bought all of that, but he has no, that he doesn't, this less is more kind of thing is not working with him. And the way he
lost on him.
acts, it lost. And the way he talks, two times we catch him talking on the phone, losing his temper. Losing temper would never happen in, let's say, the higher or old school society. That would never happen in this way. Like, he lost several times his temper. And that's what that's when that hotel scene is when Daisy realizes that she doesn't want to bet on this horse. she
Yeah.
she will better stick to her, because that's, again, class is a strong bond. And uh, I mean, our parents raised us to be humble people, and to never be, snobbish or anything. And I'm very glad that we are this way, and we never, make any difference. And we had friends from all walks of life, let's just say. And but I had plenty of friends that were arrogant, and that were like, they kept their doors of these closed club very, like, locked for the people who in their view do not belong there, which was very sad. But that, some people, that's the way they were. And that's what Tom Buchanan is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Sasha, that is an amazing perspective. I could have never fathomed that perspective coming into the case. That's extraordinary. We could talk for hours. I would actually love to talk to you more about this. That's just a incredible story.
It's because you're nouveau riche.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I need to know. I need to know those manners and things.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. No, they can never. They can take. I believe the expression is they can take the trash out of the trailer park. No, but you can't take the trailer park out of the trash, and that's you. You're trailer park trash. So Sasha, thanks so much. I love that perspective.
Incredible.
Now what I want to know is what's keeping you busy right now. What have you been up to lately?
Thank you. Well, I'm pretty busy at the moment. So just 2 days ago, I had a fantastic and very important table read of a script where I read for the lead, and that was a pitch for producers. And if hopefully everything goes well, there could be a chance, and please wish me luck, there could be a chance that I will remain in that role. We will see. But
I'm going to knock on some wood right now. That was Dylan's head.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Well, also I'm working right now on I have a part in a theater play, which is also based on a book, and I play an Iraqi woman. It's called Ali's Bees, and it's a wonderful story. It's like a fable in a way, and the theater is called the Lockdown Theater. They did a couple of fantastic performances, and the an amazing friend and very close person to me named Rico E. Anderson played.
Love him.
Love Rico.
Played a shout out to you, Rico. I know you are listening to us right now and supporting us with all your heart. And we're supporting you with all our hearts. And so he played a lead part in their previous project, which was called Tough Trip Through Hell. And so I am participating in their current project, and we will show this. Of course, I'll let everyone know when we have this performance for the general audience, but also we will be performing it for the students of middle schools in LAUSD, at least. For now, it's online. It has a lot of special effects and stuff, so it kind of makes it a little bit like something between theater and film, which I'm really excited about, and I love this part. I'm speaking with Russian accent, but I had to learn Arabic accent. I don't know. I hope I will be good with that accent. Also now I'm not sure yet. There might be another project because now it's like all we're at the very start of it. So I'm not sure yet. And also I was reached out by a Russian director that I worked with. So he sent me a script. So that's this week's homework assignment to read the script and to tell him if I want to work in this film. So I have no idea yet what the part is about.
Tremendously busy, and yet you found the time to prepare a whole case for The Great Gatsby.
A winning case.
A
And
winning
watch the
case.
film another
I
10
am-
times.
Thank you. I'm a very big book lover. I love reading, and I'm more of a visual person. So when I tried audiobooks, I only listen to audiobooks when I'm, doing chores at home, because then it's convenient. You can do the boring stuff and you can read a fun book. But I love paper books. And I cannot read electronic books at all. I like this. And at home in Russia, I have a giant library. I have somewhere around 10,000 books.
Jesus.
After I gave away a lot of them before moving here.
Do you happen to live with the giant beast monster in a mansion? You can tell me.
I probably have 10,000 pages in my place.
That's what I am trying to recreate here. I didn't succeed yet, but I'm gonna buy all of the classics that I love and all of the, start again to assembling my library.
Are you going to cast Rico as the beast?
No, not.
He'd be an excellent beast, honestly. He'd have the passion. Speaking of Rico, I know you and Rico have a show, right?
Exactly. Yes, that's what I wanted to say. And again, in Tough Trip Through Hell, the previous lockdown theater production, another lead part was played by a wonderful friend of mine, an actress, Rochelle Henry. And these two, Rochelle, Rico, and myself, we launched in the beginning of the lockdown, we launched a talk show where we invite people from the entertainment industry and chat with them about their current projects and, just generally about their life and what are they up to. And we love this work that we're doing. We love this show. And our some of our episodes, I highly recommend to watch, because, for instance, recently in the beginning of this year, the movie came out, and I think it was even in the last days of December. The We Can Be Heroes, the Robert Rodriguez film, with one of the lead characters is played by one of our guests.
Nice.
Oh my God, and I lost the name of the boy. Like,
we'll have to listen to every episode to find out who.
Oh, he's Isaiah Russell Bailey. So with Isaiah Russell Bailey and his mom, Brittany Perry Russell. And so we have an episode where we interview them. And the other one, we have a Cobra Kai panel. So some actors from Cobra Kai, which also, season 3 is on right now. If you haven't binged it yet, then please do. And so, and then watch our episode. We have a lot of incredible guests from famous film and TV shows, and we will have more. So we're now on our winter vacations, but
Nice.
We will be back.
Nice. And the name of that show is
The Lightning Hour.
I practiced that lightning sound.
Is that the Terminator?
For weeks.
Finger guns?
It was a little of a lot of stuff, guys. Get off my back. I practiced. Now, Sasha, we always ask for recommendations from our guests.
Ooh, oh my God. I tend to keep forgetting all the great movies and TV shows and the names of them. Am I the only one who is answering this question? Maybe?
We all are. Would you like to let someone else go first?
Yeah. Let's.
All right, I'll go first.
Oh, here we go.
I rarely go first.
It's
but
true.
Thinking of movies that were based on great classic novels, I'm going to recommend 1962's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Good choice.
Never heard of it.
Right. Shut up, Brian. This is Gregory Peck, right?
No, he gets pecked by the mockingbird.
Yes, it's and he's killed by the mockingbird. I saw the movie. It's a great novel, obviously. It's a great movie. I guess it's don't read the sequel to the novel because I haven't heard great things. That's to Go Set a Watchman.
Go Set a Watchman. Yeah.
Not heard
I
great.
killed a mockingbird once.
We've heard with you killed 2 of them with 1 stone, Ben.
I did.
That was impressive.
Yeah, it was evil then. But it's a cool movie about growing up in the South then, and it's really about justice at the end of the day, right? And we're all about justice here on the Rails
That's
of
true.
Justice.
I mean, do you really think there's someone listening to the show that's not familiar with To Kill a Mockingbird?
That's what I was like. What do I say?
What are you
like,
gonna
just
say?
I mean, just go watch it.
I love it when they go to space. That's my favorite scene.
Yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird goes to space. That's one of the better sequels that they did. So after that, we'll pass it to Ryan Luis Rodriguez, who always makes a good point.
Alrighty, my first of 19 recommendations this week is the first film from the director of The Great Gatsby. It's called Strictly Ballroom. It exemplifies all the things that I love about Baz Luhrmann, the sense of composition and the love of bold colors and the almost musical rhythms, the deliberately campy overtones. It was made without the kind of sizable budget that he would have for all of his later films, so you get a real sense of his strengths as a filmmaker. And it's currently streaming on CBS All Access, which I do not have, and I guess Pluto, which you shouldn't watch.
And it was filmed entirely in a McDonald's playscape, right?
Sure.
It's strictly ballroom.
Everything else was CGI'd around it, so you don't know.
It's strictly ballroom.
And the Grimace is the villain in the film.
Nothing kills the Grimace. Dylan, what have you got for a recommendation?
I am going to recommend also kind of an adaptation, but it's more about the feel of a series, and that's 2015's Goosebumps, which is just a fun, like, adventure kind of movie. Jack Black is in it as R.L. Stine, which is just hilarious. So if you grew up reading the books like I did, and like my children are doing now.
Yeah, I was about to say, because there's some over there you bought for your kids for Christmas.
Yes, I know, and they're fantastic.
Right, for his kids.
Kids.
No,
he also plays Slappy in the film.
No, it's great. My daughter's reading The Haunted Car, and she came across the name Mario Andretti, and then she's like, Mario Andretti? I'm like, oh, it's Andretti. He's a famous race car driver. And the next sentence is literally, he's a famous race car driver, and she thought that was hilarious. So, yeah, the Goosebumps movie is just, it's a lot of fun. It's fantastic, and if you're a fan of the books, you're going to love that movie.
And if you're at the reading level that Dylan is, those books are perfect.
They are.
But like To Kill a Mockingbird, don't watch the sequel.
Yes, the Cuckoo Clock of Doom.
Oh no, Ryan's actually might be right on this one. I don't think that I could recommend the sequel, but I don't think it's
the first one's good though.
Yeah, first one's just perfect.
Ben, what is your recommendation for us?
Going on films based on magicians, because this one's The Great Gatsby. You see, I'm going to recommend The Prestige, and while I hold that Inception is his masterpiece, The Prestige is a movie that I still think is a top shelf Nolan. From the beginning, we're instructed to watch closely, and as the film unfolds in its acts of a magic trick, Nolan uses that same structure to execute his own story writing one, which takes us through many twists along the way. It is fantastic.
Ryan, the baseball player?
Oh, Nolan Ryan. That is one of the relationships that we've been inventing for Ryan and Christopher Nolan.
Oh, right.
Nolan.
That's when we get together and kiss.
Yes, exactly, which I know you're looking forward to. And I believe that if The Prestige is top shelf Christopher Nolan, fuck you, Ryan.
No, I like Nolan Ryan better.
Top shelf Christopher Nolan, then that must mean The Dark Knight Rises is Dubra. So that has been all of us except for Sasha. Sasha, now that you've seen us all set a fine example for you, what is the recommendation you have for our listeners?
It's Goosebumps too.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your recommendation. These movies are great, and I totally agree. That's my recommendation as well. However, and it again has nothing to do with anything that we were talking about today, I would really use this opportunity to recommend you guys to watch some of the Russian movies, because there are a lot of really great Russian films and Russian comedies and dramas. And if, let's just say that comedies might not be that well understood because you need to know more about the culture to get some jokes, but the dramas, they're universal. And there is one old movie that pops and comes to mind is When the Trees Were Tall, and I think all of these movies can be found with English subtitles on YouTube. in Russia, we don't bother about the rights or whatever. Copyright.
I've heard that.
There's
Yeah,
the
so
quote.
you just go to YouTube and type it, and every director will support it and will say, "Oh, you watched my movie on YouTube? That's great." And so, well, almost. But so when the trees were tall, it's the Soviet drama of 1961. Was one of my childhood favorite films, and there are many of those. And so this is a story about a man who lost his wife during World War II, and then he got into the hospital, and he meets this woman from a village, and she kind of takes sympathy in him, and she comes to check on him. He helps her before that, it doesn't matter. So she starts visiting him, and at some point she tells him the story about a girl in the village who lost her. She's an orphan, and she lost her parents in the World War II. And when he recovers, he goes to that village, and he's very lonely, of course. He lost everything too. He goes to that village, finds the girl, and pretends that he's her father who came back. And this is a very, very touching story of their starting as difficult, but then growing into the real bond relationship of this guy and this girl who lost everything. And another movie that I would recommend also for everyone to watch. It's called A Scarecrow. It's one of the masterpieces of Russian Soviet movies. It's a drama, two-part drama about a girl who basically is bullied at school very, very badly because
She doesn't have a brain.
no.
I was going to say, if she meets a scarecrow and then a tin man and a cowardly lion.
No, in fact, there's something happens in the class, and the class, somebody did something, and the class gets punished, and he witnessed who did it, and she wanted to help this kid, and she never kind of betrayed him and never told that it was him. And then she was accused that she did that. And because she couldn't reveal the truth, because that was her principle, and also she liked that boy, she kept silence and was bullied. But it's much more deeper story, and it's all the actors are kids, and it's brilliantly directed, and the kids are fantastic there in this film. And so, just to kind of, if you want to get acquainted with Russian films, I would be very happy for our audience to watch some of the Russian pieces of movie art.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always a great opportunity to expand your horizons, as it were. Anyway, we want to thank our guest, Sasha Kerbel, for joining us. Sasha, you did a wonderful job, and I hope you can join us again in the future.
Thank you. I would love to come back.
And with that, we are all out of show, but we hope you'll join us next time as the Reels of Justice keep turning.
Bye-bye!
Bye.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.